Against the backdrop of the war in Gaza, we are seeing an alarming and dangerous intensification of hostilities between Ansar Allah and Israel. Ansar Allah has continued to target Israel with numerous drones and missiles, attacks which have reportedly resulted in civilian injuries and impacted a civilian airport. And likewise, in August and September, we have seen several Israeli strikes in Sanaa and other areas controlled by Ansar Allah, which have reportedly killed numerous civilians. The strikes on the 28th of August also killed senior Ansar Allah officials, some of whom were interlocutors of my office. This escalatory cycle must end.
Fletcher for briefing us today, and I welcome the participation of the permanent representative. We condemn the ongoing and persistent Houthi aggression, with continuing missile and drone attacks against Israel and against shipping in the Red Sea. We are clear about Israel's right to self-defense against these attacks. But this must be done in compliance with Israel's IHL obligations, including the need to avoid damage to critical civilian infrastructure. We call on the Houthis to stop this reckless escalation, which has already resulted in significant civilian casualties. We urge all parties to exercise restraint.
Thank you, Mr. President. The events of the last... I remain gravely concerned by the continued hostilities between the parties, which have resulted in scores of casualties and damaged critical infrastructure. Airstrikes against Sanaa and Al-Jawf since the last council briefing are reported to have resulted in more than 300 casualties. International humanitarian law must be respected. Civilians and civilian objects must be protected. 2 weeks, as described by the Special Envoy, will understandably dominate.
The latest wave of arbitrary detentions of 22 United Nations staff in Sanaa and Hodeidah is an egregious escalation by Ansar Allah against the United Nations. While one staff member has recently been released, there are now over 40 UN personnel detained, in addition to a colleague who died while in detention. The United Nations and all its staff serve under the principles of impartiality, integrity, and respect for human rights and dignity. Their unacceptable arrests, the forced entry into UN premises, and the seizure of UN property in violation of international law endangers the United Nations' very ability to advance peace efforts and deliver humanitarian support to the Yemeni people.
The detention of another 22 United Nations staff by the Houthi de facto authorities since the 31st of August is intolerable. This is in addition to the 23 staff who were already detained, along with dozens of staff and former staff from international NGOs, civil society, and diplomatic missions. So I would reiterate the central demands that you made as a council in your statement on the 12th of September, the immediate release of all those detained by the de facto authorities, and your clear message that those delivering humanitarian aid must be protected. That arbitrary detention of now 44 UN staff, the forcible entry of UN offices, the seizure of equipment, all of that fundamentally undermines our ability to continue to deliver at scale in these locations. And as this council also called for on Friday,
We demand the immediate and unconditional release of all UN, NGO, civil society, and diplomatic mission personnel detained by the Houthis, including those held since 2021. Threats against humanitarian workers are unacceptable and risk exacerbating an already dire humanitarian situation in Yemen.
as Steph often reminds us, we're under attack. Last year, 380 plus aid workers killed, highest ever, 270 already this year. It's a record that I fear will break again. And that violence against us, and I'll come on to Yemen, for example, and of course, OPT, Gaza, is somehow being normalized. It's an age of impunity. And so a question that I wish was asked more is, where are these weapons coming from that are killing us and those we serve? They don't come out of nowhere. All parties enable a safe and secure operating environment. Rising food prices, security threats to our work, a collapsing economy, and persistent conflict have made Yemen the third most food insecure country on earth. Before February next year, 1 million more people are expected to be forced into extreme hunger, joining 17 million Yemenis with too little to eat. This includes more than 40,000 people in the catastrophic phase of food insecurity. 70% of households in Yemen do not have enough food to meet their daily needs. This is the highest rate ever recorded. Nearly half of the population in the country are now suffering severe food deprivation, a jump from 36% only a year ago. 1 in 3 families is experiencing moderate to severe hunger. In 1 out of 5 households, someone goes a full day and night without any food at all. I've raised this alarm here before, but this reporting confirms our and your worst fears.
Of Yemen at our meeting.
It is outrageous, at a time when humanitarians are trying to serve the Yemeni people while beset by funding cuts, that our operational capacity is being further and needlessly jeopardized. Detaining staff, humanitarian staff, does not help the people of Yemen. It doesn't feed the hungry, heal the sick, nor protect those displaced by floods or fighting. UN and humanitarian personnel must be protected to do their jobs and save lives. The people of Yemen, wherever they may live, must receive the humanitarian aid that they need. They deserve a future of greater security, justice, and opportunity. So, Mr. President, I close with 3 simple calls to action. Firstly, the immediate release of all colleagues who are arbitrarily detained. And if you have influence, you must use it. Secondly, the return of UN compounds by security forces to ensure that humanitarian partners can do their work. And thirdly, your funding for our response to food insecurity and malnutrition. We must not allow mass hunger to define the future of Yemen.
Mr. Fletcher for his